this is Jen. You're watching BPD Woman. Welcome to the channel. On this channel, you will learn how to more effectively live with your borderline personality disorder diagnosis. I myself was diagnosed 21 years ago, and it is now my goal to help you achieve your goals, whether that's in love, relationships, career, emotional stability, better communication. You're in the right place. If you're a family member of someone with borderline personality disorder, or you're just more interested in learning about the disorder, you are also welcome. I produce videos occasionally that speak directly to the family and friends, and you will absolutely learn valuable information and information that I would wish someone had spoken to my family members. That said, I'm not a psychologist or a therapist, but I am a bit of a expert because I've lived with the disorder for the last 21 years, and I can answer one question that most of those folks cannot, which is, what is it like to live with borderline personality disorder? After being diagnosed 21 years ago, I have committed myself to about 4 to 6 rounds of DBT. I have read books, workbooks, and then reread them and redone them. I have been in therapy. I have stayed on top of research. I have really committed myself to my recovery because I do want to lead a more effective life and have deeper, meaningful relationships. So, if that sounds good, please hit subscribe and the bell below so you never miss a beat. I produce anywhere from 3 to 5 videos each week, always something new. Before we get started, once again, I'd like to tell you that if you do have BPD, the news is so good. The outlook is so good. You have one of the most highly diagnosable, highly treatable, and one of the personality disorders with the best remission of behaviors, giving you a better chance at recovery than any of the other 15 or so personality disorders that exist. As long as you commit your time and effort, you can definitely have a more effective life and see your symptoms dissipate with time. Okay, so in many of my videos today, I'm gonna be looking at some notes here and I'll be popping them up. I had a conversation with a client. As many of you know, or maybe you don't know, I own my own business. I am a dog sitter, a pet walker, I do many things, but it's all pet-centric related. And I often speak in my videos about self-esteem, creating boundaries, what effective communication looks like. I've covered things in other videos, and I'll put some links up along the way during this video about when should I ask for something? Is it okay? Am I allowed to stand up for myself? How do I know when to stand up for myself? And I stress that creating boundaries and having self-esteem creates a higher sense of validation in you, which leads to you feeling more masterful, which leads to you having more effective communication and getting the outcomes that you want and that are owed to you. They're yours. They're yours to have. They're things that you are allowed to ask for. And so I'm gonna talk through today and throw up some screenshots. This will be rather quick-ish. We'll try to keep this to 15-20 minutes. Of a conversation I have with my client that is going to hit upon all of these points. And I'm gonna read out the entire text message at first, and then I'm going to go back one by one of each of these, and I'm going to point out some things that I think are worth mentioning. The goal here in this video today is to help you see in real time what I mean when I'm saying this is what effective communication looks like. This is what a healthy boundary looks like. This is how you validate yourself. This is how you validate the other person, and that you keep boundaries for yourself without becoming emotional, without becoming angry, and without ruining the relationship if you wish to keep it in the process. And so let's do that today. Again, keep in mind throughout this video, whenever you are asking for something from another person or you're setting out a goal, there's a few questions to ask yourself, and they are, do I have a right to ask for what I want? Is it the right time for me to ask? Are they in a good spot? Am I in a good spot? Or is this a wrong time to ask? Should I ask maybe when my chances of getting the answer I want happen a bit later? What is my goal and my outcome of this situation? What is it that I would like to happen in the future? So keep those 3 things in mind as we go along. So I have a client today, and I'll preface by saying that she's probably a little bit of a nervous Nelly, but hey, I can relate to that. And so she definitely is more talkative in her text messages and her communication any day that I go see her animals. She has 3 dogs, and I don't see them regularly. Maybe I see them once a month, once every 2 months. So in the blue is me, and obviously the gray bubble is my client, and I have put a sticker over her name so that she remains anonymous, but we will just call her the client. Okay, so every day in the morning, I will email all my clients or text them and say, hey, this is the time to expect me today. So let's get going. I'll read the whole exchange and then we'll go back and we'll discuss it. Me, I'm in the blue. Here we go. Good morning. I'll arrive today around 3 p.m. to visit the babies. She says, thank you. I said, you're welcome. If you could please also leave me some towels on the kitchen countertops, I'd be appreciative. It's going to be raining off and on today. And now at this point, she had called me, but in the morning, I'm walking my dog, I'm feeding my animals, so it wasn't, and I'm also having 2 hours to myself before I set on a 10-hour workday, so I don't really want to talk to anybody in the morning when I'm getting ready. So she called me, I didn't answer, I sent it to voicemail, and then I wrote, I saw that you called, but now is not a good time for me to get on the phone. Is it okay that you just text me your question or whatever you need here? Okay, so I sent that, I fed my animals, and then I noticed that she left me a voicemail. So I listened to her voicemail, and her voicemail said, she's getting ready to sell the house, and could I please take the animals through a specific door so that they don't get the house messy. Perfectly understandable. So I wrote her back. I listened to your message. Sure, I will make sure they go out through the bedroom door. Are there any towels out? If not, could you please just let me know where I could find some so that I could towel them off? Thank you. She wrote, I left already and didn't leave towels on the counter, but I believe there are rag towels in a Home Depot bucket by the door in the bedroom. There are also a bunch at the top of the stairs. And I said, perfect. Thank you. Okay, then she wrote, thank you, sweetie. Also, I may have a couple of workers there to fix the downstairs floor, Bob and Jose. There is a key for them under the kitchen doormat. So yes, you should lock the doors unless they're there. Makes sense? ? Have a great day. Me. Now this is a problem. We are in the deadliest time since this pandemic started in March through now, December. What's today? The 4th. So this is we've had the most deaths, the most hospitalizations. If anything, I'm being extra cautious as I go into people's houses and I interact. If anything, I'm really limiting a lot more than even I was 2 months ago because, people don't want to wear a mask. Anyway, that's a different story. Okay, so I said to her, and now she's driving, by the way. So we're having this entire text conversation while she's driving. So I wrote, okay, that could potentially be an issue. There are too many people these days not wearing masks, and I'm not entering homes if there are people there that I don't know that are wearing masks, or I meant to write are not wearing masks. Honestly, even when people are wearing masks, I just don't trust them. It's already happened previously with another client who said his contractors would be there and that they would have masks, and then I showed up and there were 3 of them in a small area with no masks. So what I can offer to you is that I can show up at 3 p.m. at my usual time, but if they are in the house at that time, meaning the contractors, if they are in the house at that time and they plan on being there between 3 and 3:30 during my scheduled time, I will not be able to do the service. I would suggest, please, that you call them and let them know. Safety is absolutely critical, and this is actually the most dangerous time of the pandemic since it began in March. So I went and I walked away from the phone, and I didn't feel nervous, or I was like, okay, I've asked for what I wanted. It's totally reasonable. She wrote back, you bet. I totally respect that. I just told Bob we can have him come another day. Besides, the dogs will be more keyed up, and I should keep them calm today. I apologize. I wrote, thank you, it's not a problem. I know you have a lot going on and selling a house can be extremely stressful. I appreciate it and I look forward to seeing them then. Drive safely. And then she liked the message. So this is a great example that I think, and I want to talk about it here in some more depth. So let's get right into it. So let's start by saying, the first thing that I mentioned, you have to know what you want to ask for in any situation. And you know, some decisions are bigger than others, you know, like when you go into Starbucks, you ask for what drink you want. But if you're in a personal relationship, you ask for bigger things like more respect, or you need more space, or you need more time, whatever the case may be. So for me, what I was asking for today, what I wanted out of this, you know, ask for what you want. Okay, so there's two things that I want with a client. I always want to keep the client if it's a good match, because I want to keep that income coming in. Now, this is a good example in this exchange of I need two things now. And now you have to, as you're in relationships and working through issues or situations, you have to start determining if there's two competing things that you want, which one becomes more important. So in this case, the two things that I'm competing for are keeping the client, you know, being professional, having the service, retaining her as a client, having the income, and my own personal safety. So if they're on an even level, okay, which is more important to me in this situation? My safety. It's not even a question. It's my safety, because, you know, for $40, if I get sick, then that's just not worth it, right? Like that's a very quick decision. I don't even have to do a pros and cons. You know, I don't want to be sick. I don't want to die. I don't want to leave my pets alone. I want to live a long life, and I don't want to get sick and then have to be quarantined, not be able to service my other clients. Then maybe they would get upset, scared. You know, they're already keeping me on a bit as a favor so that I can survive during the pandemic, economically speaking. I don't want to make them feel more nervous and then cut the ties. Okay, so you get it. So a threat to my safety became evident, and also I just don't know who these guys are, right? So I don't know who they are. I don't know what their exposure's been. And in any case, I don't want to be around them. That's just not happening. Okay. And I would even say that when we are not in a pandemic, that would be my thing. Okay. So a threat to my safety came up, and I decided that my safety was the priority. So then, you know, now the second thing to ask yourself is this a good time to ask for what I want? Is this a good time to bring up this question? The question, and really I didn't ask her a question, did I? I asserted that this will be a problem. I let her know. It wasn't even a discussion. I said, you know, the ultimate decision would be up to her, whether she wanted me to come over or whether she wanted the contractor. She was going to have to make a decision, which was more important to her. Her dog's having a break in the middle of the day with her out being gone all day, or was it more important for the contractors come in and work on her floors? That's a question for her. For me, I'm not coming if they're there. So I didn't really ask her a question, but the thing that the second part when you're working and negotiating something is asking, is this a good time to bring this up with the other person? And the answer is, it wasn't ideal because she was driving, but it was a time-sensitive issue, and it also wasn't a good time because I was in a bit of a rush and I needed to get going out the door and make this video on the fly, which I didn't expect to do today, but I love making them. So unfortunately, it wasn't the best ideal time, but because we were under a time-sensitive issue and she was expecting me in about 6 hours and the dogs needed a break, we needed to talk about it right now because we were under a time crunch. So yes, it was the right time to ask. Okay, the third, do I have a right to ask, right? Perhaps it will be unclear, right? If you're going to someone else's home, do I have a right to ask them to wear a mask? Am I allowed to tell them what I want, even though they're paying me and I'm going into their home? I can see how it would be unclear, and you may have some second thoughts, but again, boom, that safety goes right to the head of the pile. So yes, I have a right to tell her what I want, and I have a right to ask her. Just because it's her home, and just because she's my client, and just because she's paying me, I still have a right and a duty to protect myself. And what if I hadn't? How would I feel if I had not stood up for myself? Then I would go, and then I would be feeling guilty that I didn't stand up for myself. I would feel bad. I would become emotionally dysregulated, perhaps. Probably. I'd get on a spin cycle inside because I hadn't asserted myself. I would be resentful at her and pissed. Things that would pop in my head would be, how could you be so thoughtless? Like, why are you trying to kill me? Why are you exposing me to these other people? And I'm being a bit dramatic, but it's true, So yes, you have a right to stand up for your own health. Just because you're in someone else's turf, or, perhaps they're your boss, or they're a police officer, or they're a client paying you money, you still have a right to defend your health. It is your right. So yes, I had a right to ask. So some other questions to ask yourself when you're negotiating a situation is this relation important to me? And how do I want to feel after this interaction? Yes, this relationship with my client is important. It is important. I want to keep her as a client. I want her to tell her friends about me. I want her to write a good review. I like her dogs. I actually happen to like her. Well, from what I know of her. And I want to keep the income coming in. I want to grow my business. That's my goal. And so in my interaction, I want to feel confident that I've created a boundary. And creating boundaries also helps me look professional, right? If you let people walk all over you, they'll take it. They'll walk right all over you. They will. They'll do it. It's hard when you're at work and, someone, we've all had that coworker that like shuffles off their work on you, right? Or says they're part of the group, but like they contribute nothing to the group. It can be hard to stand up for yourself and say, no, I'm not, that's not mine. You take care of that. But it is something that's worth it to me to keep her relationship as a client. And that means that I want to feel professional and good and effective. And I want her to feel respected, that I'm taking care of her needs, that I'm validating what she's going through, and that I also communicate that I understand her point, right? Okay. Now, let's go back a little bit and now let's talk through some of these things now that I've made these points out, okay? So, I'll throw these up here. I want you to notice that let's answer these questions. How about let's do that? Okay. So, how did she respond? Right? She responded pretty positively, right? She said no problem in between texting me back. She had called her contractors and told them not to show up today. So she had a very positive reaction. Now, thank you, she was thanking me. And then, after I asserted what I needed from her, she said, you bet, I totally respect that. I just told the contractor he has to come another day. And then she thought even further how this would benefit her side, which was the dogs will be more keyed up if there's more people in the house. So she'd like to keep it. And she apologized, which I didn't expect her to do. Great. Okay. She understood my point of view. She validated me. She showed me respect. I showed her respect. And what happened as a result? I'm still going over today. She still gets what she needs. The dogs get their visit, right? I still get my income. I stay safe. She feels nice and secure. So everybody got what they wanted out of this interaction. Now, there are a few things that I'd like to point out in this text exchange that I find are a bit irritating to me. For one, like I said, she's a bit of a boundary pusher. She's a constant texter when it's her day to have a visit. And that's okay. But, without fail, she always has an issue with her payment, like how to figure it out and how to make it. Not actually paying me. She always pays me on time. But she'll always have a issue with the technology. I mean, she's not super old. Like, she's in her 60s. She's not like, 105, never seen a computer before. That's not the situation. But I'm going to point this out. Thank you, sweetie. So she's done this a few times. Like, she's also addressed me as Jenny in a few of our text exchanges, and it really bugs me. It bugs me. My name's not Jenny, it's Jen. I don't sign my name to anything with Jenny. In fact, when I hear the name Jenny, I actually, it takes me back to, I lost some of my notes. It takes me back to my childhood. I don't like it. It assumes for me, it brings up these feelings of immaturity, or like, there, Jenny, you're a child. I'm sure she doesn't think like that, but these terms of endearment, like, she'll say things like, thank you, sweetie, or, this other kind of, anyway, you get the idea. I don't like it. It's not professional. I don't address people that way. I cannot imagine, maybe she did. She had a corporate job with a big company that if I said the name, you would recognize it. I can't imagine that she used this type of language to her employees. Okay. Another thing that's super annoying to me is this statement here. Okay. Actually, it was in the same text. So she managed to annoy me twice in the same text. Thank you, sweetie. There's a key for them under the mat. I have my own key. She said, so yes, you should lock the doors unless they're there. Makes sense? Okay. So does that make sense? The phrase that both implies that the person asking is uncertain of their communication, and second implies that the person that you are speaking to is a moron. Well, I am not a moron. If you are using this phrase, does that make sense? I'd like you to consider not using that. It's a super invalidating, talk downy kind of phrase. In fact, I generally use it, when I do use it, if I'm trying to talk down to someone and be like super condescending. Secondly, I didn't even ask her about locking the doors. I always lock the door. I sell myself on safety. I didn't ask her anywhere in my previous exchange, should I lock the doors? I don't know why she's bringing that up. Now, these are a couple of things that annoy me, right? And they trigger me. Not a lot, but a little bit. I'm like, ugh, annoying. But I let them go. I don't address them in the context of this conversation. And I probably might not ever address them in any context because, one, it doesn't mean that much to me. If she was a person I saw every day, or, she was a roommate, yeah, then I would probably address it because the frequency of my annoyance would go up, and boundaries are healthy. You have to communicate with people. She doesn't know that I don't like these terms of endearment. She doesn't know that I don't like certain phrases. So if I don't communicate to her, she would never know. However, I don't bring it up for two reasons. One, it's not that important to me because we're not friends and it's not a super heavy relationship where I communicate with her a lot. Secondly, we're addressing something bigger in the context of this conversation today. So even though, you may have multiple things that you want to bring up when you're negotiating something, whether that's a job contract, a pay increase, something that you want to talk about with your spouse or your boyfriend, girlfriend, these are things that you have to, again, weigh in order of importance. Like, what is most important to me to communicate in this conversation? And is it the right time to introduce these other things? If I had introduced this to her today, I think that would have come off a little nitpicky and like, ding, I'm dinging you, ding, I'm going to bring up this now, ding. Try to always, they always tell you, therapists always tell you, stay in the discussion point about what you're addressing then and there. People get off on tangents when they have arguments or they're negotiating. And, they'll be like, could you please take out the trash, right? And then that might divulge into, you don't care about me, you're always unthoughtful. And then I don't like your mom, and I don't like how you wear your shoes in the house, right? And you go down like 5 other things that have nothing to do with the other situation. And what it does is it makes you lose credibility in that moment because it comes across as like nitpicky and layering on. all of those things I just mentioned could be super valid, important things to you, but you have to, again, think about, is this the right time to address this? Okay. So now some things in this video, I wanna ask out some questions, and you think about them, and then I'm gonna answer them. In this exchange today, did I sound professional? Did I stand up for myself? Did everyone get what they wanted in the end? Did I get what I wanted? Did the client get what she wanted? Did I keep our relationship intact? Do I feel guilty? No. Do I feel better about myself after the interaction I had today? Do I feel more masterful? Do I feel more effective? Do I feel like I'm coming out of my BPD behaviors? Abso-freaking-lutely to everything that I just said. Yes, I was professional. Yes, I stood up for myself. Yes, everyone got what they wanted in the end. Yes, the relationship is intact. Do I feel guilty? Nope. Previously, yeah, maybe it'll feel a little bit uncomfortable when you're not used to asking for things or asserting yourself. It takes practice, you know? That's why I recommend not starting with a huge thing to ask. Start with a small thing, you know. Could I please have another lid for my coffee? You know, because, you know, maybe you saw them. I hate that when they put their claw hand on your coffee lid and they put it on at Starbucks. You know, could I please have another lid? You know, maybe when you need to reach for something in an aisle at a grocery store and someone else is standing there. Oh, excuse me, I would just like to get the peas, please. Could I please get these? Right. It's starting off with small things to assert yourself, and then you work up to the bigger things. Practice with a friend. You know, one of these videos I'd like to do like a role play. It's something that I did in DBT, right? You practice asking for something. You know, when we get to I'll start soon the interpersonal effectiveness DBT skills, and when we do the dear mans and the gives, I'm going to do a mock conversation so you can see what it looks like, the describe, the express, the ask, etc. Here's some other things to keep in mind today. I will go to my client today as promised, and I will show up at 3 as promised. Now, what happens if I show up and her contractors are still there and they're not wearing masks and her dogs still need to go outside? What will I do? Well, I'm going to stick to what I said I was going to do. I will not service her dogs. They will not go outside, and she will lose her money. I'm not giving her a refund, and that's a part of my stipulation of my business that everyone receives a copy of. If she thinks that, you know, sometimes people do this, they'll trap you. Like, they'll think if you show up, then you'll feel obligated to do it. I won't. I'll get right in my car and I'll leave. It's not even a matter of if. It's just that'll happen. So if she wants her dogs walked, then the guys cannot be there. And if I were to go into the house when those guys were there and do it anyway because maybe I felt a sense of guilt, and I do care about animals, like no matter how the client, maybe I always care about the animals in the end. Unfortunately, again, my safety comes first, my credibility comes first, and my boundaries come first. And sometimes those are just lessons that people learn. And sometimes people push your boundaries. What if today, instead of the reaction that this lady had, which was perfectly reasonable and respectful and professional, what if instead, and I've had this happen, she was like, no, you're just gonna have to deal with it, like, not my problem, you know? Or what if she was dismissive? Okay, thanks. You know, what if I had asserted myself that I can't have these contractors there when I'm there today? And she was like, okay, thanks, bye. Well, you know, then you have to use the broken record technique, right? I will not be able to go in to see the dogs if the contractors are there. I will not be able to give you a refund, right? Like, you have to, and believe me, it's happened a few times. The client will get more and more emotional because I am asserting my boundary, and they don't like that, and they're boundary pushers, and you'll find boundary pushers anywhere you look. You gotta, and I let them go on. Go ahead. And this is when another question comes in my head. How do I want this to play out for me? Well, let's say this conversation or text exchange ever ended up on the internet. How do I want to look? Professional, right? And they're never going to post that exchange on the internet because they look stupid. So they're not going to do it, but they will push you. Other things to keep in mind. I will do a professional job. I have forgotten about this situation. I'm not letting it linger. It's not going to affect how I'm going to work today. I'm also not bringing it up again, unless it happens over and over and over again. If this happens a second time, I'm going to have to be like, listen, we talked about this last time. So I hope this has been helpful in regards of showing you in a real world setting when I'm talking about when I say have effective communication and what that looks like. Boundaries, asking for what you want, assessing if it's the right time to ask for what you want, figuring out for yourself how you want the relationship to stand once the interaction is over. These things are small, but I tell you, it made me feel really good today. And I woke up, I was a bit tired, and my hot water's off in the building, the heat's not working because the boiler's broken, so everyone's a little bit agitated in the building. But after I had this interaction, I felt so good. I'm like, I'm gonna make a video, I'm gonna tell people like this stuff works, and it did work. So my name is Jen. You've been watching BPD Woman. Please consider subscribing. Check out some other videos. There's lots that I hope that you will find helpful. And until I see you next time, in everything that you do, please be effective.